Hi everyone, and welcome to our industry briefing, the first of many for the Digital Twin Challenge in 2021-2022. My name is Adam Beck. I'm Executive Director of the Smart Cities Council for Australia and New Zealand, and delighted to be with our cohort members to join you today in giving an overview session about the Digital Twin Challenge and where all things are at. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and acknowledge the First Nations people as the original inhabitants of the land at which I'm participating in this meeting today, which is Brisbane. And I recognise that the country north and south of the Brisbane River is home to both the Turrbal and Jagera nations, and pay respect to elders past, present and future. A couple of quick housekeeping matters. We're in webinar mode today. You're all on mute. However, your voice can still certainly be heard loud and clear, and we encourage you to use the Q&A box at any time as we go through this session. We'll be monitoring that and really look forward to bringing you some responses to your interests and questions later on in the session. We're also recording this, so if you have any friends, family, colleagues, peers who may be interested in checking out what we discussed, certainly please refer them to it. It'll be up on our YouTube channel by the end of today. Today, we're going to be focused around introducing the cohort, 17 organisations, and also the projects. We've only got an hour together, and we also want to make sure that we provide some opportunities for some Q&A. We've got a couple of questions that we'd also like to ask our audience, so we'll sort of slip in a bit of a poll towards the end. Because indeed that sort of helps shape some of the work that we're going to be doing as part of the challenge. I've got 4 of our cohort members who I've asked to say a couple of words on behalf of the cohort, so we'll hear from them before we head into that Q&A session, and then we'll close, and we'll be done by noon AEST, so we'll keep that time commitment with you for just that 1 hour. For those of you that do not know what the Digital Twin Hub is or where it is, we encourage you certainly to go and check that out. That will be the primary resource channel by which we communicate with you and others, both here in Australia and New Zealand, but also globally. And it's also where you can subscribe to be regularly updated on not only the Digital Twin Challenge progress, but all things digital twin in the region. There's a couple of other important pages that are on the hub. It includes the blueprint, the forum, there's a page for the challenge, and of course we've got some resources in there. So a good resource, if you haven't been to the hub yet, digitaltwinhub.global or digitaltwinhub.org will get you there, and encourage you to check it out at some point if you haven't already. On the hub at the moment, you'll see this pop up when you go there. These are really 2 important initiatives. Today we'll of course talk about the item on the left, which is the challenge, but also on the right hand side you'll be able to download a copy of the draft digital twin blueprint for Australia and New Zealand. And indeed there's a page on the website that you can go to which is called the blueprint. So I encourage you to head there, check out the draft blueprint. Very keen for feedback. We welcome it. We've got a survey platform that you can use to sort of focus some feedback for us, and comments will be closing Friday, 27th of August. So please jump in there and have a quick scan of the blueprint and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. In the blueprint, you will see and note a number of important sort of information pieces that we're sharing. There's a heap of recommendations, but early on in the blueprint, you will see a section around the definition. It's certainly an interesting time when it comes to digital twin and what it is and what it isn't. Yes, it's a digital replica of a physical thing. I think there's sort of common understanding around that being sort of the symbolic definition. However, what does that mean? Well, in the blueprint, and indeed being used as a framework and a structure for the Digital Twin Challenge, is this definition, which is viewing the digital twin as a set of capabilities. And so for the purposes of optimizing decision-making and making the best investments and actions that we can, we identify sort of 5 key capabilities that we're going to be talking about and advancing through the Digital Twin Challenge, but also, as I said, as articulated in the blueprint. The challenge summary, we did do an industry briefing earlier in the year before the challenge was really mobilised. We're well underway. We've been going for a couple of months now, a lot happening in the background. This is our first sort of big public reveal. What it is, in summary, we have 13 projects, each of them delivering a knowledge resource or artifact of some description. And each and every one of those knowledge resources will be donated back to government and industry and academia. They'll be freely accessible when we launch them next October. And the whole idea here is to help kickstart digital twin action and investment, really try and give everyone a bit of a boost, making sure that we don't reinvent the wheel. We can learn from each other. We can sort of really consolidate some common understanding and approaches, which we think and believe are very important for building a thriving marketplace for digital twin. So we have those 13 projects. We're going to touch on those today. We've got 17 organizations, very diverse, incredible, amazing cohort of individuals that are represented by those organizations, spanning public and private sector academia. And they're really going to be doing the heavy lifting to create these library of knowledge resources. And all of that's going to happen over an 18-month program, Digital Twin Week 2022, which is towards the end of October next year, is when we will release all of those knowledge resources. So we've got a lot of work to do in what's going to be a very brief period of time, but we're also equally keen to get support from many others, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. So I'm going to ask the cohort shortly to switch on all their cameras so you can see them. There are real people that sit behind all of these logos, but I wanted you to sort of really take a look at, you know, the diversity of organizations that you're seeing on the screen there. We're delighted that we've got 5 councils and municipalities scattered across Australia and New Zealand. So Lake Macquarie, Launceston, Marlborough District Council in New Zealand, City of Melbourne, Moreton Bay, a real diversity of local government organisations, and indeed various shapes and sizes. And they're going to provide a fantastic sort of basis for which we can really understand what the demand side is really seeking in the digital twin sort of platform and approach with respect to making the best possible decisions and investments. And likewise, Sydney Water, one of the largest water utilities in Australia, they've joined us, and you can see our academic partners there, the Grid Lab at University of New South Wales, and also Frontier SI, great organisations that are deep in advancing pilots and research projects. We're going to be learning a lot from them. And then what you have scattered across the rest of the slide in front of you is a real diverse, rich group of private sector organisations. ADG, Construction Data Solutions and Automation as a collaboration have come into the challenge, providing sort of deep expertise and skills and knowledge around everything sort of data science, the built environment. Big globals like our friends at Becker and GHD and WSP, you know, really providing a deep bench of talent and, of course, extensive experience in this world, bringing that to the table. You know, global advisory firms like PCSG. And then we've got some really fantastic organizations in the Office of Planetary Observations, OPO, deep in the space of environmental sensing, and really looking at environmental data, valuing our natural landscapes and the intersection between all things digital and data, and also geoscape in there as well. So look, a fantastic group of organizations. Think project, really practical, pointy end of asset management and optimization and the use of digital twin. You know, we really are blessed by such an incredible cohort. So with that, behind the logos sit a whole range of amazing individuals with all different sort of experiences and passions for this space. I'm going to ask them to switch on their cameras for a moment. I can't read them out individually because there's so many of them. I'm just going to sort of switch off my slide deck for a moment. So this is only part of the sort of individuals. We have all of them represented here on the screen and slide right now. But each and every one of those individuals has many other peers that will be joining in on the exercise. So we're imagining that the 17 organizations is going to yield probably a core team, we think, of around about sort of 45 individuals. And then there's going to be sort of second tier and third tier talent and staff and colleagues from each of the organizations that are represented here. So this is our first sort of coming out party, cohort friends. So I'll get you to give a big wave to our audience. We've got about 70 people on the line. Thanks so much for all diligently being there and having the cameras off waiting. So I'll get you to shut those cameras down now. We will certainly come back later on during Q&A and a few other different perspectives. But for now, let me head back into our slide deck so that I can share just a little bit more information, particularly now around the projects. So we've got those 17 organizations and all those great individuals. What I will say is that we are recruiting other industry bodies and professional associations, and we've had early outreach with our friends at the Planning Institute of Australia, the Australian Institute for Quantity Surveyors, the Water Services Association of Australia. So we've got some incredible industry-based representative organisations that will be coming along on the journey with us as appropriate. And if we turn now sort of to the projects, let me spend a few moments to sort of share a little bit of the scope of each of these projects. This is sort of the real pointy end of the challenge. This is what it's all about, which is advancing these ideas, the ideas behind each of these projects, and of course, the output and the outcomes via a set of knowledge resources and a library of artifacts. Encouraging you as we go through, of course, as I mentioned, to ask any questions, drop them in the Q&A box so that we can get around to those as we move forward. So of the 13 projects, when we went through the expression of interest phase, so for those that don't know the process of how we got to where we are today, last October we released an early expression of interest to the marketplace. We had around about 30 organizations express an interest. We then officially launched the application process. We had about 22 to 23 organizations apply, and we ended up inviting around about sort of 18 to then join the challenge. And we have the 17 that we currently have. We still are in negotiations in the background with a few organizations that may join as time goes on. But at the moment, those 17 organizations are locked and loaded. And when they applied, they sort of indicated what their top 3 projects are that they'd like to get involved in. So each of our cohort members is playing a particular role on each and every one of these projects. Some of our cohort members aren't involved in some of the projects, but we have 3 levels of engagement. We have co-leads, we have participants, and then we have observers within the cohort. And I'll share who sort of the core co-leads are and some of the participants shortly. But in looking at which projects were of most interest to the cohort members, a couple really floated to the top. We did some prioritization. We did do a little bit of consolidation, but this is where we landed, these 13 projects. And over time, the last few months, we've been doing sort of a whole range of due diligence on these project topics. We've been discussing them a little bit, and we've been establishing sort of some manageable clusters by which we may advance the projects. We think there's certainly some commonalities in some of these projects very intensely and more tightly than others. And this is sort of, as of today, it's a very sort of agile and sort of iterative journey that we're going through. But at the moment, there's sort of these 5 clusters that we've identified to make up the 13 projects. You can see cluster 1 there. You've sort of got some high-level strategy and roadmaps around digital twin action planning. Cluster 2, we sort of have environment and sustainability, sort of urban planning type projects in there. Cluster 3, deep on sort of data. Cluster 4, some core enablers behind helping digital twin performance, like AI and visualization. And then cluster 5 is a really big, important one that sort of captures all of them, which is what does a digital twin education program look like for government and industry? So the 13 projects are all there. We do have some of the natural clustering that has occurred through our early work. And let me touch on these projects as we go through. And what will happen is our public industry briefings like this one will be quite frequent. But after today, we will transition to industry briefings specific to the project. So you'll have the opportunity to jump online with the cohort teams that are driving the relevant projects, and we'll be able to go deep into sort of the scope and how it's evolving. And certainly that'll be a great opportunity for you to interact with the cohort team members. And of course, share your views as well. We certainly don't know it all by any means, and we really do value industry feedback and input. As I mentioned, cluster 1 there, the first project, Digital Twin Strategy, creating a common template for an organization-wide digital twin strategy. That was the most popular project among the cohort members. It's going to be a bit of a central resource for all of the projects. And as you can see in some of those scoping notes there, we see that the strategy template may potentially become a bit of a leverage point where we can go into sort of some deeper roadmaps, some deeper template and strategy blueprints, particularly around some key areas where we see government has already invested quite substantially. For example, GIS and also IoT, the Internet of Things, where we've got organizations that have good investments, good capability and resources already in those areas with those platforms. What does it take now to sort of, mature, to expand and continue on a pathway to a digital twin journey? So this cluster of projects we think are going to be pretty important and foundational, and indeed all of the other projects will sort of help inform these as well. And we've got there a project level digital twin action plan. That's sort of project 4 that sits in there, and that may or may not become eventually a supporting template to the strategy one. We need to wait and see how they play out. Our project leads, for this across this cluster of projects, GHD, the Grid Lab at UNSW, Lake Macquarie, PCSG, Think Project, and WSP. We've got a great sort of group of co-leaders there that are going to really help us advance those projects. And whilst those organizations are the co-leads, as I mentioned, many of the other cohort members are then participants that also are key to developing each of those 4 projects. And then we have a number of our cohort members who are observers. And the observer role is an important one, which is to sort of sit on the sideline, observe a fresh set of eyes, but then also be on standby for testing and trialing any of the early output and resources that come from the projects. Cluster 2, a really exciting one, a digital twin pilot for a number of sort of urban and city planning projects and urban design projects. How is sustainability a driver for digital twin, and vice versa? How can a digital twin drive greater sustainability performance within an organization, a community, an asset? And then one that's very dear to my heart is, what do we do with our green infrastructure and natural infrastructure, and creating landscape-based digital twin use cases, which is a very powerful one. And it's sort of an important sort of place for me to note that the scope of the Digital Twin Challenge is for both the built and natural environment. So we're very excited to venture into probably some of those more non-traditional digital twin conversations around that underpinning fundamental green infrastructure that certainly supports supports a lot of what we do. So a great group of project leads and participants there in cluster 2. This is a deep one. What I would say is that we've just finished combined 10 hours of deep dives since last Friday. So we had 5 2-hour deep dive sessions around each of the clusters last Friday and Monday just gone. A lot of dialogue, a lot of agreement, a lot of disagreement, and a lot of shared thinking, which is great. So the projects and their scope are still evolving. Some very deep conversation, questions being asked about how we approach these 3 projects. One of the key questions that we asked ourselves at the beginning of each of the deep dives was, has this been done before? Does a resource or guidance already exist for these kind of things? In many instances, it was a very clear no, which is good. It means that we're sort of on the right track, and it's worthy of our time and effort to invest in building some guidance for government and industry. But equally, we know that some of these projects are going to have, very clear line of sight or crossover into existing resources, standards, and efforts that are being undertaken out there in government and industry. And in particular, this cluster of, really, data heavy, data focused digital twin projects is certainly going to be one where we know there's going to have to be a lot of engagement with those that are doing good existing work, and we know that there's some good standards that we can pull from. So this will be one to watch very closely. Cluster 4, we've got a couple of projects in here. This is sort of some component parts that we believe are very valuable in powering the effectiveness of the digital twin. We've got advanced analytics and AI and what their role is. How do we ensure that those are really powerful engines within digital twin capability and your digital twin journey? And also the community engagement one, the visualization one. That was one where we had some great conversation. Visualization is, of course, a very early on-ramp into building digital twin capability. There's a lot of visualization going on, a lot of visualization that's being called digital twin, which we are in some ways delighted about, but equally very concerned about. So it's really important that we look at what the role of digital data visualization is in digital twin capability. And this one's going to have a real bent around how can we use that to better engage the community. So we think that's certainly one that's going to be of great interest to government at sort of, real core levels like local government, but then also state and territory and regional governments across Australia and New Zealand. And then the sort of 5th cluster, cluster 5, which has one project in it, the Digital Twin Education Program. This is a real doozy. It started off being very big and broad, but indeed our deep dive on Monday got to a really great place. Our current thinking is that we will create in an open source environment a master slide deck that essentially is open to everyone. You can come in, you can pick and choose, you can copy and paste. It'll be in a Creative Commons environment. It'll allow our educators to pick it up and build off. So, universities can come in, take what they need from it and then build their 7-week short course. They can build their semester-long subject curricula. But equally, the private sector and other key stakeholders can come in, pick the relevant parts out of the master slide deck, create their presentation for a boardroom presentation to the C-suite, or indeed you can pinch content and convert it into a 5-minute YouTube clip. So we believe the master slide deck becomes a resource that's highly valuable to sort of all sectors and stakeholders, and we've got a great leadership and participant cohort there among our participating organisations. So really looking forward to that one as well. So friends, with that, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I'd love for Jack and Fleur and Claire and Shane to switch on their cameras, and I'm going to invite them one by one to give a sort of a 2 to 3 minute overview of who they are, where they're from, why they're interested, and touch on some of the projects that they're going to be involved in the challenge. And Jack, I'm going to hand it straight over to you first, if that's okay. Welcome and thank you.
Great, thanks, Adam. It's great to be part of this project. So my name's Dr. Jack Barton. I manage the Grid Lab at the University of New South Wales with Professor Sissi Zlatanova. And we've been observing all the different projects across the board with this program, and I'm one of the co-leads of the Cluster 5 with the education program. It's a great challenge, really, and a very rich, fertile area for technical development, and ultimately a tool to support make our cities better places and help our communities, ideally, at the end of the day. As such, we tried to identify different user groups, and the first answer was, well, everyone. But to try to pull that into a bit of a tighter scale, we looked at different levels of users. For a start, you want an onboarding process that can help teach people just what the basic concept is and what digital twins do. That might be at the executive level, or even as a way for ease of access and onboarding for smaller organisations that might not have large tech teams or things like that. So as part of the slide deck, we came up with the idea of having a slide deck that had a series of different packs of information that might be useful to help educate different users. And that goes at a very broad level. Then, of course, we can drill down to much more specific user needs. Obviously, there's digital twin covers the full stack of technical development, right from data storage right up to front-end visualization. Also, digital twins should be well designed to be able to help many different disciplines, whether it's community engagement or developing efficiency with different mechanisms that happen in the cities. They're a great tool for being able to visualize and share information and discuss our urban issues, our regional issues, bring experts together, encourage conversations, break silos and so forth. So also, as Adam flagged, there's a great opportunity to integrate this into different courses, perhaps a specific course like you might get with city analytics, looking at the concept of digital twins and how to engineer that full stack and direct it best to help solve problems. Also, there's a good opportunity for add-ons to existing courses to be able to help people the interface with these emerging systems, and also across the country, really, through the TAFE network, potentially being able to get right through to different trades that might be involved in different aspects of urban and regional development in Australia. I think that's enough. I think I've covered all the basic points. So thanks, everyone.
Jack, thanks so much for that. Fleur, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack, and thank you, Adam. So just as a one-line, I think Project is a specialist technology group for the design, build and operate life cycle of an asset. So what we've seen in the role that BIM and GIS has played over the last decade, it just shows us how important it is to reach a unification of these technologies. And although everyone's perceptions of these technologies may differ, and the language we use might be a bit different as well, and we actually see the evolution of this being the digital twinning and combining the 2D and 3D geometry with multiple layers of data, and temporal right time data as well. So as a company in the asset management and work management space, we have over 30 years experience in these solutions. And these are all GIS driven as well, so it makes complete sense for us to co-lead and participate in projects for GIS to digital twin roadmap, and also for an asset optimization framework, and take our clients on the journey from GIS to digital twin. Like Jack mentioned, we have many clients that are eager to get there and eager to get there very soon, but they need strategic guidance along the way. So it's critical for us and our clients, being government and industry, that we evolve and leave a best practice, which we hope to achieve with this challenge. So we know that New Zealand's Infrastructure Commission is exploring the opportunity for a nationwide digital twin. And for those who may not know, so all of local government New Zealand uses our asset management software for infrastructure. So it's really critical that we work with government and industry to identify and really understand what the issues are and the challenges that they face, so that we can create a solution that is going to add real value, and not just be some cool tech, and really evolve with them and help them overcome these issues as well, now and into the future. So we are quite at the start of our digital twin journey, which is one of the key reasons we're taking part in the challenge as well, so we can collaborate with the public, private and academic sectors, and to share our experiences and our learnings and our expertise, so we can move forward together, and develop these strategic initiatives and the frameworks and the roadmaps that are going to support us and our capability moving forward. And just to get a consistent and standardized approach as well, I think is really vital. So for us, we see digital twins playing a critical role in asset optimization in particular, when we move from historically reactive maintenance, and even preventative maintenance, and then on to predictive, which we'll be able to do with digital twinning. And detecting events before they happen will be an absolute game changer for government and in the industry, and for our workers and our communities as well. So we can really mitigate risk across a number of areas, and provide huge benefit both functionally and financially, with some really great social impact. So combining information from the data silos, we think we'll see a real digital transformation there, by pooling historical asset data and real-time data from IoT sensors, which can now be put anywhere because they're tiny. So we can use that to stimulate, predict and maintain assets. So to us, that's what real asset optimization is all about, really. And digital twins will play an essential part in the true data representation and visualization that will really reshape the operations industry, in our view. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that overview. And with that, let's hear from Claire now. Claire, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Adam. Hi, I'm Claire Chacken-Bryan. I'm the Smart Cities Lead here at Lake Macquarie City Council. We're just north of Sydney in New South Wales, just before Newcastle, just to give you a bit of context of where we sit in the world. Yeah, we're the co-lead on a number of projects, which we're really, really excited about. One of them is around the aspect of, the IoT strategy and that framework for how do we leverage our existing IoT investment and future IoT investment, and how does that relate to digital twin? We know across a lot of government and industry and different organisations, everyone's been investing in IoT for a number of years now. So it's going to be really interesting to have a bit of guidance for all of us around, how do we take that and also take this concept of digital twin, and how does that all come together and get the best benefit for everyone, given all of our investment and the continuing investment, whether it be from, your facility to infrastructure to natural environment. IoT's got its hands in a lot of pies. So, and at its core, IoT at the end of the day is that data aspect and that data play. And that feeds into all these other aspects we're going to explore in a number of projects across the Digital Twin Challenge, from looking at data sharing and exchange to how do we, what does IoT data look like in a digital twin? Does a dashboard pop up? Do buildings change colour based on temperature? How do we even see the data? What are the different ways that data can be visualised? And and again, linking a flow, asset optimization and IoT go hand in hand. And as well as with, that ongoing predictions and simulations IoT data feeds into, and how does that relate to the artificial intelligence project as well. So the IoT sort of project and guidance is going to be really core and connected to a lot of the different challenge projects. And I think that's what's also exciting about the challenge, is a lot of the projects projects all cross over and feed off of each other and advise each other. So it's going to be some really exciting resources that come out of this. We're also a lead on the visualization roadmap for community engagement, and our general community and their engagement in digital twins in general is going to be a really core thing, particularly for government moving forward on, you know, expanding that value of why we're investing in digital twin and making it more data more accessible to a broader community and broader audience. I think digital twin can really play a role in changing, you know, increasing our data and digital literacy across our communities, as well as playing a role in helping with behavioural change, better understanding planning and design processes, better understanding the places we all live in. And yeah, so there's some just really exciting projects that are going to happen. So I think, yeah, definitely keep watching this space.
Claire, thank you for that. And indeed, in due course, hopefully we'll be making an exciting announcement around a little piece of Lake Macquarie that we'll be using as a test bed for our pilot around urban planning and design challenges and how digital twin can be an enabler of sustainability outcomes. So many great things to come. Shane, over to you now. Thanks so much for joining us. Would love to hear a couple of views from yourself. Thank you.
No worries. So yeah, Shane Riley, Manager for Digital Engineering here at Sydney Water. You know, I'm in at Sydney Water to build up a digital engineering framework and approach and connect with our executive teams to do that. So very much going on that digital transformational journey with the teams, and we see you know, the application of an organisational digital twin, you know, really being able to help us, you know, reach our outcomes. I guess, you know, we're involved in a number of projects, you know, almost all of them. We'd love to be involved in it and leverage stuff back into Sydney Water. But the one that's close to our heart is the strategic project. You know, it's really, I think, at the heart of what it is that we're doing here, which is accelerating government leadership in this space. And that's a really big part about what I'm driving in my role with my team in at Sydney Water. Out of this project, you know, we're looking to give more overarching direction. You know, how does an organisation start to change in this space? What are the steps that we do? Who does them? You know, I think we're also going to get you know, more meaning and purpose for the industry. So having it more government led, I think, is going to give more meaning to you know, that full asset lifecycle and all the consultants and stakeholders that we connect in with during that process. From a direction perspective, I just want to touch on a few things from Sydney Water's, from a Sydney Water lens. So from an asset owner lens, you know, we really want to look at applying a digital twin to Sydney Water to help us do what it is that we do. So, you know, we plan, we operate, we maintain, you know, we service our customers. You know, so we want to make sure that, you know, a digital twin helps us go on that journey, connects with our team members, you know, so we can really drive that uptake. We also want to use it to better manage information. So I guess a lot of the, you know, the talk at the moment is a lot of the buzz things that a digital twin can do, but we also want to strip it back and just look at how we can manage information better as a group, you know, and provide better services. We also want to connect to our strategic objectives. So, you know, we've mentioned, Adam's mentioned, and the others have mentioned a few other things involved in here, such as sustainability. You know, we want to improve safety outcomes. We want to look at digitising our business. So they're all strategic things that Sydney Water want to do. So we really want to leverage and you know, off what's happening in the digital twin space and see how it can help us do that. Just to touch on a little bit of the who and the what. I think from a government perspective, you know, that question is asked, like, what do we do? Where do we start? And that's where I think this strategic project, you know, is really going to help the organisation, organisations such as ours, actually move forward in this space, take the lead, and actually provide that value to the industry as a whole. To touch on just why Sydney Water are a part of this and what we're doing. So I touched on the fact that we're building a framework and an approach and connecting with our executive teams. You know, one of the key goals there is to enable that digital organisational twin. We're going through project brief stage at the moment. That's been approved, moving on into business case, and then we go into a full program of work. So we're jumping all in with this, and we want to share our learnings with this cohort and with the industry on what we do, but we also want to learn off what's going on with the cohort as well, and pull them back into our approach. So very keen to contribute to this, excited about it, and looking forward to the road ahead.
Shane, thanks so much for those notes, and also Claire and Fleur and Jack, thank you for sharing your views. For our audience, you will have the opportunity to hear from all of our cohort members over the months coming as our projects evolve, and as we learn new things and we want to share certain things. So today was a bit of a start. So thank you, friends. I'll get you to just switch off your cameras for a moment. I'll bring you all back very soon. We've got a question that has popped up in the Q&A, and we'll go there shortly. Encourage you to put any comments or questions in there. Let me just make a few final notes, and I want to ask our audience some questions, and I'm very keen to see what the responses are going to be. But I wanted to say there's still opportunity, and there always will be, for non-cohort members to be engaged. And if you're keen to engage, here's sort of the 4 ways in which we've identified so far. So you may be a curious enthusiast in digital twin. You just want to sort of be updated on how the challenge is going. That is fantastic. You can head to the Digital Twin Hub and subscribe, and you'll sort of get some regular updates there. So you can certainly do that. You may be sitting there and go, you know what, I've actually got something really important to offer into the challenge and these 13 projects. We've set up an expression of interest, a digital twin challenge support expression of interest on our website. So if you go to the hub and you go to the challenge webpage, there'll be a link down there where you can sort of identify how you think and what you might be willing to sort of offer or bring. Likewise, you may be sitting there and you go, I want all in. I want to be part of the cohort. That's also an option, and you can clearly indicate that when you're in that EOI survey platform. And the other real important one that I really want to highlight is that you know, we're very keen to have other representative industry bodies and not processional associations, but professional associations would be good. As I mentioned, we're in discussions with a number of them at the moment, and in particular, Matthew's question, the first one that's come through about IoT data, we have invited the Internet of Things Alliance Australia to be a partner and collaborator in this. So really looking forward to having those more deeper dive industry bodies and representative groups be part of this challenge. So if you're keen to engage, there's the 4 key ways in which you can do so, and head to the hub to access that that platform, that survey that you can do. So I'd like to jump into Q&A now. Really keen to hear from our audience questions or comments. I'm going to start with Matthew's here, which is a question for Claire, but also anyone else. So if I can get the cohort members to switch their cameras on, happy for anyone to answer this one. I suppose for Claire to start off with, Matthew is interested to understand what specific IoT data sets you have or plan to have.
Yeah, so we do have a number of existing IoT data sets from environmental monitoring, things like temperature and humidity, and We also have monitoring around our beaches with our Smart Beaches project. We also have building monitoring data such as water and electricity. So we'd be looking at a range of data sets. I suppose the point of the project is not to limit to specific organisations' data sets for IoT, but really that general overall leveraging of IoT across a number of sectors and areas. If I put my other hat on, I'm the secretary of the Smart Cities Workstream for the Internet of Things Alliance Australia. And there's a lot of different groups involved in the Alliance, from, that full water industry to electricity to your asset optimization people. So I think we'll see where it takes us. There's a lot of potential there.
And certainly keen to hear from our cohort members from Moreton Bay, City of Melbourne, Marlborough District Council, Launceston. Any views there? And indeed, Shane, Sydney Water, I understand you guys have deployed a sensor or two. Any of our other cohort members want to answer that one?
Just, I guess, from a Sydney Water perspective, we're really keen to look at our operational data as a whole. IoT being critical to that, and to some of the smart meters that we're rolling out, but also our SCADA systems and other operational data sets that could come into play as we work out what we really want to use a digital twin for. And how it's really going to help our operations and maintenance processes. So I guess with my view is, a real concentration on that use case, and then that would determine the sort of sets of the data sets that you would require for that that use case.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. Along the similar lines, we have a question that's popped up here around OT and IT cybersecurity, especially in the subject of IoT. Is that a concern for the group and a topic to cover in the scope of the projects? The short answer is yes, indeed. The 5 data leadership vitals that the Smart Cities Council published last year are a minimum set of fundamentals that will be baked into all 13 projects. Those 5 vitals are ensuring that there is purpose for data. We then look at data privacy, data security, data ethics, and data governance. So as a bare minimum, we'll have a framework and have those 5 vitals embedded into each and every one of the projects. Chris mentions here in the Q&A, how long do you see the program activity taking? I believe this isn't a short program. It kind of never ends, but we do have to put an end date on it, Chris. We will be releasing a minimum of 13 knowledge resources to government and industry next October. So we've got about 18 months, and we will have an output for each and every one of the 13 projects. But equally, we're not naive to the level of ongoing importance to create some of these artifacts. So it could be that we are able to deliver a part or a portion or a first phase of particular artifacts. Then hopefully by October next year, there may be others also willing to come on board and pick them up, and they continue beyond the lifespan of this 18-month challenge. So yes, very ambitious, but we'll be good. We'll have certainly a whole library of knowledge resources to hand over to government and industry next October. Andrew asks the question, will some of the cohort comment on natural environment data sets that are part of the digital twin challenge? I'm going to go straight to Thomas, if that's okay. Thomas, this is certainly your wheelhouse. A response generally around natural environment data?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thanks for the question. I guess focused on urban greening, which links with open space in cities, parks and recreation, targeting indices such as vegetation cover, vegetation health, tree canopy, linking to urban forests in cities, and digital twin access of trees across assets, streets and parks. We had a good conversation the other day about what nature is, particularly this project, to do with systems thinking as well, and more regional parts of Australia, which might accommodate waterways as well, water bodies, water management. which links with Shane also. So there's some starting points for us. I hope that's a good intro.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for that great question, and Thomas for the response. I'd like to launch our quick 3 questions in a few minutes, if that's okay, for our audience. Our first question has come up. We'd love to get a bit of a response and see what the results are. If you had to pick a priority issue in catalyzing the digital twin market, what would it be? And you get one choice here. I know it's a hard one. If you had to pick, what would be the priority issue in catalyzing a digital twin marketplace? So you should be able to see that on your screen. And I'll give another 30 seconds. Okay. The second question is in there. Where would you like to see more digital twin action and investment? Little bit of a sort of verticals focused one. Road, rail, management of landscapes, utilities, economic development. Okay, some good diversity coming through there. And question number 3, where is greater leadership required to catalyse the digital twin movement in Australia and New Zealand? We've got various levels of government in there. Private sector, utilities, academia, professional associations. Just another 30 seconds. Okay, looks like most of those questions are answered. So just sharing those at the moment on the screen for everyone to see. Priority issue, digital twin use cases and benefits. Data management looks like coming in around about second. Interesting, thank you. Where do we need to see more action and investment? Kind of pretty equal across many of those, which is good. Good intelligence. Where do we need greater leadership? Okay, state, territory, regional government, followed by national government, pretty clear out there as 1 and 2. And also local government and private sector. Academia got off scot-free there. Okay. Friends and our audience, thank you for sharing your views on that. That's sort of some great intelligence for our cohort, and we'll also share those results as well in a post webinar article on the hub. Just very quickly, if your world is all things digital twin, like it is for some of you that are very keen enthusiasts, we have a week-long celebration of all things digital twin coming up in October. Second annual Digital Twin Week happening 18 to 22nd. Head to digitaltwinweek.com. Draft program is up there. Registrations are open. What have we got? 23 sessions across 5 days, virtual networking lounges. We have sundowners with the UK, with Europe. We have a case study series, breakfast with the US. We've got more coming from the Digital Twin Challenge project teams, local government roundtable, working on a digital twin standards workshop at the moment with Standards Australia. Lots going on there. So head to digitaltwinweek.com. Friends, that is us for this webinar. It's 12 noon here on the HQ clock at Smart Cities Council. I'd like to thank all of our Digital Twin Challenge cohort members for coming online, and participating. Everyone switch on their cameras, give us a final wave. I'd like to thank our audience for also dialing in. We're very excited to be bringing you updates along the way with respect to this challenge. But for now, please stay healthy, stay safe. I know many of us are in lockdown. Please remain optimistic, look after your health, and we look forward to talking again soon. Thanks so much for joining us.